Thank you for the introduction. And actually, you might be right about the patterns, because I worked a long time ago on gallium nitride transistors, and the gallium nitride transistors are actually coming now to be used in microwave radios. But that's not what I was going to talk about. It's actually quite the contrary. I gave a talk here last year, and the purpose of the talk was to explain what microwave technology is. And this year, the purpose of the talk is completely different. The purpose of the talk is to tell you that you should not worry about microwave technology anymore. You should stop focusing on the technology because it's rapidly becoming mainstream, but you should really focus on what it brings to you. Before I do that, I want to still remind you, just as an introduction, the few facts that you should know. So fact number one is it's faster than fiber. It's always been, and it will always be. Fact number two is there is much less bandwidth. And the fact there is much less bandwidth, and by a lot, I really mean a factor of 1,000. In a fiber line, you can have data rates of the order of 100 gigabits. In a microwave line, it's more like 100 megabits. And this has profound consequences. It has consequences on the way you write to your algorithms, and it has consequences on the fact that since the bandwidth, the absolute best bandwidth is very scarce, it makes a lot of sense to share it. So the market data services will be a fact of life very soon for everyone. And when I mean everyone, I really mean everyone who cares about latency, and that is broadly defined by anyone who is co-located with an exchange. Before actually another interesting thing is that it's cheaper and faster to build. So I expect to come back and tell you about more developments next year. And the field is evolving quite rapidly. That is why we're doing this presentation this year. Before I go in the thickness of the presentation, I want to first tell you that we'll have a quiz. So you have little gizmos on the table. Please pick one. You should remember the number of the gizmo, because it will be the winner will get the prize given by the number of the gizmo, because it's all connected there wirelessly. Some kind of microwave, I suppose. And the subject of the quiz is actually not microwaves, and especially not microwave technology. The subject of the quiz is some few questions randomly, plus something about Flash Boys, and you might wonder why. Because in the last chapter of Flash Boys, there is written something about this odd and somber technology, which is microwave. And we know it's announced. We are in Flash Boy number 2. So we will feature in the sequel. And here I would like to preemptively tell Michael, if he ever hears me, that we're actually contributing to the health of the markets. We're being transparent, we're being fair, and contrary to what you might think, this is not a somber technology. Let me give you a little introduction on the company. So the company was founded in 2011 by Bob Mead and myself, the two McKay brothers. Our names are not McKay. There's a little story behind this, and the company opened its first service between Chicago and New Jersey in July of 2012. It was the fastest commercially available service when it opened, and it has remained the fastest commercially available service ever since, and we hope it will remain so in the future. Since then, we've opened a lot of new lines. We're busy building in Europe, in London Metro and from London to Frankfurt. But this is not a sales pitch, so this is not what this talk is all about. This is a sister company that we have, which is called Quincy Data. And Quincy Data uses the best microwave bandwidth available to send data across. So it is sometimes McKay, and sometimes we do deals to acquire bandwidth on other networks which are very good, and that's what we've recently done to be able to cover Europe. So the Quincy data, I don't really want you to focus on the product sheet here. The one thing I would like you to notice is two things. First, we're publishing our latencies because we want to, contribute to the transparency in the market of who provides what at what latency. And the second thing that you should notice is that when we provide a latency, it's either in bold or it's not in bold. And it's in bold when we believe we have the fastest commercial offering. And it's not always the case, but we always say it. And if someone comes down with a faster offering, we'll change the product sheet. The company is about 40 people now, and we have many data items. ICE opened recently, eSpeed opened recently. We're really on a rampage to try and cover all the things that are relevant for market moves. Now, what do we worry about? We worry about someone becoming faster than us. So every day what we do is we download all the filings from the FCC. Because the great thing about Microwave is that if you want to be protected, you need to file for a frequency at the FCC, and then you get the right to use the frequency for a while, as long as the regulation allows you to do so. So as soon as you file, this becomes a public record. So you can download, anyone can download all the filed frequencies and reconstruct the paths, and that's what we do. And we worry a lot that someone may one day be faster than us. To tell you the truth, over the past year, there has not been a ton of move in that arena. The paths have changed a little bit, but there are not a ton of new entrants on the final space. What has changed a lot, actually, is exactly as we had predicted, the radio technology has improved. So the paths are not very much different, but the repeated time on each of the towers that comprise the path is going down, and it's going down rapidly, and most of the radio vendors are aggressively investing to improve that. To show you this, I will show you how we analyze this. So here on the y-axis, you see a figure of merit, which is the average repeated latency. So if you have a path, you have, say, 20 to 30 to maybe 40 towers, and you need to repeat the signal as many times. When you repeat the signal, you have to pay the latency budget. And the latency budget is different in each tower because some towers you regenerate the signal, some towers you just re-amplify the signal. But what is interesting is the average latency budget that you have over all your network. So you can analyze networks that way. Here what I've presented is a straight line is one path from the preceding graph. And on the y-axis, on the vertical axis, you see the round-trip latency. And round-trip latency is very simply calculated as the length of the path divided by the speed of light plus the endpoint latency, which we've, for this analysis, set at 40 microseconds round trip. May not be exactly the right number, but this is for illustration. And then the number of towers multiplied by the average latency per tower. So you can see the different paths. The intercept on the left is the actual length of the path. So different guys have different path lengths. And the slope of the line is the number of towers. So if you have fewer towers, the slope is lower, and then the latency budget introduced by having more radios or more average latency in the radio is smaller. The blue dots is what we presented last year. Last year, you can see that there are actually published numbers only for 3 companies. And those 3 companies, I should name them. One is Epsilon Network. They have the distinction of being the ones that were quoted in the book by Mike Lewis. They have been much vilified in the blogosphere for absolutely no reason. But the blogosphere is that. You get abused for nothing. And the other company is Strike Networks, and they are also publishing their latencies. So you can see in blue is the latencies of last year. That was the latencies that we published and that Strike Networks published a year ago and at this trade show, and that was on the websites. You can see that the red dots are today's published numbers. I am not sure about Epsilon because they have had 8.5 on their website ever since they started. So either they're not improving or they stopped publishing. So I'm not sure about the Epsilon red dots. But Strike is certainly publishing things. And as you can see, they are moving down the latency path to as close as they can to a latency budget of almost 0. We're doing the same, and the interesting thing is they don't have the same radios as we do, but if you analyze it that way, the average latency budget is not very different. So somehow physics worked out that the technology of the 2 radio solutions wasn't completely different in that respect. Now, what we're doing is we have published our roadmap, and our roadmap shows that we will be on the yellow dot by the end of this year, slightly before December, probably. And that's mostly thanks to the radio improvements, but that is also, you see that I've had a dotted line, so it has a little bit of path improvement. So that's how we analyze the competitive landscape, and that is an analysis that everyone can do, which is something very new to the telecom world, where in the fiber world, I can really say that because I didn't know anything about telecom 4 years ago. The fiber world is so unbelievably cloak and dagger that you have to wonder if they hired everyone from the Dungeon and Dragon best teams of the 90s or something. Anyway, so I think we stand out, and we collectively stand out in the microwave world as being fairly transparent. So CME to Carret is one of interest. You also have CME to NY4. I will go a little fast there. We are the only published latencies, and this is a competitive situation. CME to NY4 is actually the route which is in the most demand. So I wonder why we don't have more competition here. I think that we will eventually have some. CME to MAWA, very little competition. I've not put the depth for latency. We're slated to open in the very late summer, September-ish, and you can guess what our latency is going to be based on the analysis of the previous slides. But also of interest is actually Cermak to New Jersey. And Cermak to New Jersey is also, we're the only known or public provider, but Cermak to New Jersey is especially important because of ICE. And we've just opened the ICE data, and now the ICE data is available for everyone in New Jersey. And when you think of it, that's a huge difference. If you're a market maker in New Jersey and you're making markets and options on something that trades on ICE, there are just 2 situations that you can be in. Either the fastest networks are owned by private companies, and you have to widen your markets, otherwise you'll get picked off very often, and it's not going to be economic for you. Or you have access to the fastest data, and you can get away from harm's way as fast enough to avoid being picked off. And if that is the case, you can tighten your markets. And if you tighten your markets, then the public at large benefits. Now, let me turn to the situation in New Jersey local. So this is what I would call a pack of uncooked spaghettis. It's uncooked because everyone wants to be straight, so it will never be cooked. You know, it's always straight lines. But the fact is that there's a lot of spaghettis there, and there is vibrant competition in local New Jersey. There is actually, this is a place where we expect more competition, where we expect more technological change. In the long haul, we think the microwave technology is going to, you know, be the real technology of use, at least for the next 2 years. You know, it's really hard to make predictions further out, but I don't see anything in seeding microwave in the long haul space. In the short haul urban space, there are competing technologies: microwave, E-band, laser, combinations, what have you. What you have to remember is the only thing that really differentiates those technologies is bandwidth. Everything goes at the speed of light. So in the urban era, probably microwave is not going to be useful for very long because it doesn't have a lot of bandwidth. So the real technologies that will compete are something around, you know, millimeter or higher. And when I say higher, there's a whole range between 90 gigahertz or 80 gigahertz, 70 gigahertz, and up to, you know, optic frequencies, which we know in wavelength, not in optic terms. So this is the situation in the local New Jersey arena, and what we expect is rapid change in the competitive landscape and perhaps some technological change. Now, something interesting is, what about Europe? And the picture that I'm showing here is something that is very difficult to get. It took us a lot of work. So it's not like the FCC. You can't download the database of all the file frequencies easily in the UK. So you have to work a little hard to get this. And if you take a look at it, you can see that the paths where there is competition are from the landing station in Cornwall to London, and the landing station is where the two relevant cables come in, and the two relevant cables are FA1 and AC1. So there is definitely interest in linking the US and Europe, and there is also, you know, paths that go a little higher. I don't know if you guys know the geography of England or the UK, but who knows where this goes? I know people know. This here is where Hibernia Atlantic has said that they would land. So we don't know if they will really land there one day, because they've been saying that for a long, long time now. But that's what they said. That's where they said they would land. And lo and behold, the microwave guys have already reserved frequencies there. You know, just in case. Just in case. Another interesting thing is that you can see paths going south, like avoiding London. So what's the point, you know, of building something and then avoiding the major trading center? Well, the point is obvious. You want to go directly to Frankfurt, because there are two really big trading centers in Europe. It's Frankfurt and London. So not only are people building to the landing station, but people are preparing for bypassing London and being even the fastest to Frankfurt. So this is an interesting game, and it's really fun to actually download all the data and see what's happening. What we're doing in this field is building from London to Frankfurt. That's what we're doing today, and that's what should open before the end of this year. Now, the takeaways, what I would like you to remember for next year. So microwave networks are really here, and they're here to serve everyone's needs. And my prediction is that anyone in a co-location will have microwave data in the very near future. It is kind of it's kind of useless to go be co-located, like pay all the fees to have really expensive racks and have connections to exchanges, and then trade on stale data. So if you go and you're co-located on an exchange, you might as well get fast data, and fast data is eponymous with microwave sent data. So everyone's going to get it. So the other thing is that people, for people who do not get the data, but for people who actually buy bandwidth, really the lower bandwidth is something that is frightening at the beginning, but if you code to it and you adapt to it, it's not very hard. Now, I have, and of course reliability is not a new issue. It's an issue that everyone's dealt with. There's nothing new with microwave or millimeter wave or anything. You know, what you do is you duplicate paths and you do arbitration. Everyone knows how to do that. Now, I have a few quotes here, and I would like you to focus on them. They're obviously apocryphal. And the point of the quote is to say that it's actually not the speed. It's really the ranking of who gets there fastest that counts. But we look at the quotes because the first question of the quiz begins, and it's about the quotes. So I'll give you 3 seconds. The quiz begins, please. Well, you don't register, you just hang on to your gizmo, and that will tell you if you want. So first, you have to notice that I'm not as good as Bart Shelton on songs, so I need a little prop for that. I couldn't sing myself. So, hey, very good. Very good. I have a very bad, memory of things the way they are, and I don't think I could have gotten it. Very good. Let's go to the next one. That's a tougher, a more math one. Very good again. Very good again. So that was a trick one. Like the math fixated guys should have said 1. Nobody should have said 2, 3, or 4. And the guys that read the slide before should have said 3. So should have said 5. So why is it 5? If you can go back to the previous question. So you should have said 5 because in the question I said one of the answers below is the right one. If I hadn't said that, it would have been 6, 1/6. But I did tell you one of the answers was right. So it had to be 1/3. All right, can we move to the third question? Which is actually not a question, I just want to know who you are if you read Michael Lewis's book. Wow, that's a bestseller. When almost half the population has read it, that's really is a bestseller. And what's of interest to me is what you're going to answer in the next couple of questions, dependent on whether you read or did not read the book. So let's move to the next question. not, yeah, it's not obvious. Did I say it was the H15? Did I say that was the right answer? No, I didn't. Really? I did? No, I don't think so. I think the regulators. Well, we'll have to go see the grading. Did I really do that? I think in the book, it's between the regulators, the brokers, and the dark pool sponsors. Oh, the worst guys. Yes, which comes out best. I don't have the questions here, so I don't. Yeah, absolutely. You're right. So number one was the right answer. Actually, he's not ranting on HFT so much. Like, all the other guys are worse. And by a mile. Even in the book. Let's move to question number 4. Well, you've listened to Bart this morning. He confessed that the regulators were slightly slow in reacting. But in truth, I think if you think of Reg MS, I think they did the right thing at the time. What they didn't get right is that they should have updated the thing. And probably, and I agree with this, with Blair Hull, who gave a talk yesterday in this respect, I think that we should scrap most of it. And I think that now we don't need quote protection anymore. What we need is transparency and good standards on how to publish the data so that people can analyze it. So my proposal on the regulatory side is that we make it compulsory for every exchange and every dark pool, every things that matches buys and sells to be synchronized at a roughly 1 to 10 microsecond level and to publish all the trades. And by publishing all the trades, it needs just to be published at the end of the day, just for analysis and be made available to everyone as an open data service. And if you do that, it will be exceedingly easy to see who are the good brokers and who are the less good brokers, and where you get executed well and where you don't. And we will move away from, over-regulation, which is actually an impediment to good markets, to a state where you can analyze and you can make rational choices. That's my 2 cents on regulation. And now we can move after. Well, absolutely, you got it right. The bid ask for liquid equities is actually small, and most of the fees you pay is to your intermediary if you have a trade equities. So the real issue is not in the market itself. But let's go to the next question. Well, it's a fairly low success rate. I said retail price, which is, the price in the street. The price in the street, if you go and do your FX transaction, it's 10%. So the good answer was number 4. And that is amazing. Like, we're so fixated on a market that works. And we're so unaware of the markets that don't work. And that is retail price. So I chose retail because retail is something that everyone can experience. But even as a small company, like we have a small company in Paris and we have a bank, which I won't name because it would shame them. And when I execute my FX transaction, the bid ask that I have, and and they won't quote me the bid ask. So of course I don't know, but I can reconstruct it. The bid ask is 2%. And I was in the markets, I call them, I abuse them, I know they're stealing me. You know, I tell them, and nothing. I can't do anything. And if I go to another bank, it's the same story. They have the same 2%. And for some reason, regulators aren't interested in this. So let me move to the final slide. So this slide is not a question, but it's really it's not a quiz question. It's a question to you in general. So for FX, the bid ask is, you know, very small for the professionals, the interbank. It's exceedingly small. It's probably smaller than what I said. And for retail and small business, it's huge. For equities, the bid ask, and why did I put 0.1 cent, is because you can actually do sub-tick when you're on the professional side, when you go to dark pools, and that in some ways is a sneaky way to sponsor dark pools to allow sub-penny trading in dark pools, whereas you cannot allow it in the lit places. So that is sneaky, but it's okay because it's the difference between 0.1 and 1, which is not a lot. But on the FX side, the difference is huge. And think of it, where do regulators, you know, focus their attentions? On the markets that work. So I gave this talk at the Chinese club 2 days ago, and one person asked me, but, you know, there's that perception. There's that perception. Yeah, there's a perception that something's wrong in the equity markets. And there might be small things wrong. But if you look at it economically, they're tiny. But still the perception is there. And how do we find that perception? How do we explain and educate? That is something I don't know, but I would like to have your help. That's it. I'll be taking questions.